Hey guys, in this video, I'm hopping on a Zoom call with Joel Details and his brother Sal. They are a couple of mobile detailers who are absolutely killing it in California. And because their business is so successful, they are really good people to ask really in-depth detailing business questions too. So if you're a professional detailer, this is a video you are going to want to listen to probably more than once. But before we get into the interview, if you guys are looking to get into the detailing business, or you're in the detailing business but you feel like you're wasting money on tools and products, below in the YouTube description box, I've got a free essential detailing toolbox. This is the top 12 tools and products that I suggest for anybody getting into the business or anybody in the business, maybe just to supplement what you already have. But in the detailing world, it's so easy to get bogged down because there's so many options. So I wanted to simplify it for you, just to give you exactly what you need so you don't have to wonder about it. It also comes with a free video series where we teach you exactly what not to do with these chemicals so that you don't damage anything when you're using them. So it's a free PDF, free video series with a crazy amount of information, all in the YouTube description box below. Now let's get into the video. Okay, let's jump in. Okay, Joel, Sal, last time I had you guys on the channel, you already introduced yourself, so we'll skip the niceties and we'll jump straight into the detailing business content. And really what I want to do for this video is get your both of your perspectives on some of these questions that I think are really practical questions, and they're really direct questions that beginners often ask, and they don't always get a direct answer. So let me ask you straight out the first question, which I already emailed you guys, but we want to focus around three main questions. The first one is, in your first year of detailing, and we can talk about this in a lot of different ways, what is a reasonable, let's say, income or just top line business revenue to expect in the first real year of detailing? And I guess maybe the best way to ask this for you right now is, what would you have considered your first year of real detailing, and why do you consider that one really when you got started for real?
I would consider it the first real year of detailing when I made enough money to support myself. Like where you can say, okay, I'm making a living doing this. It doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, obviously everybody's lifestyle is different. Everybody's needs are depending on where you live. You know, if you have children or if you're just, if you're single, obviously those are going to be completely different. Necessity wise as far as what you need to survive. But I think as long as you can sustain, and it may be part time, you might be like, okay, well, I'm making half of what I was making at my other job, but I'm able to make a living doing this. And it's the perks of it are I have decreased stress, I'm doing something I love, and I'm able to take care of all of my bills, and I'm financially stable. I think at that point, that's when you can kind of say, okay, well, this is now, it's my first year. Now that for me, that's at least how I took it, where I was like, I wasn't necessarily making a ton of money, but I was able to say, okay, this is accommodating me and my lifestyle. So now I can build for, I have a good foundation to build from.
Okay, and let me ask you this as well. I want to kind of dive deep into rabbit hole these questions. So are you the kind of guy where if the business is producing, you said, enough for me to live on, does that mean just that the business covers all of the expenses that you have, and so you kind of like net out at zero every month? Or does that mean that there is some excess that the business is producing where I can save for a rainy day, be kind of conservative? What does that mean?
Well, here's so here's my philosophy when it comes to just financials in general. I don't like to. I'm a debt-free type of guy. I don't like debt, so that puts me already in a class to where it allows me to have a little bit more freedom and flexibility with my lifestyle and with my business. I don't think there's anything more valuable than having a business that's profitable and debt free, because you literally you can take chances, you can make, bigger, you could go and kind of take bigger risks here and there without having, these huge things you have to kind of consider in the back of your mind, like, oh, I still have to pay for this, or this isn't accounted for. You're able to kind of see what you have out in front of you. It's all laid out. So with me, I made sure everything that I purchased with my business was already paid off. And at that point, I started very budget friendly. Everything was really cheap that I purchased at the beginning. So all of my tools and everything I was working with was already paid off. So everything that I was bringing in was pretty much profit. You know, with the with the expenses here and there for chemical usage, pretty much that was the only reoccurring expense that I really had. And then gas here and there. But yeah, it kind of it started profiting from the get go. That's how I set it up because I didn't want to jump into something and be playing catch up constantly. So I
Sure.
think that's a good way to kind of jump in whenever you're going to. Obviously, starting a business is a risk. You're putting a lot of things at risk here. So I don't want to put any more any more risk on top of that by adding debt or these things that these additional costs that I'm going to have to account for later on through on my expected income that I'm going to try to forecast. So I didn't want to have
Sure.
come out of my budgeting. So basically what I started was with a zero based budget and said, okay, well, I don't have any costs that I have to cover for this month. So if I make $500 this month, $500 is going in my pocket. Maybe 100 of that goes to supplies, if that. And at that time I was just using the most dilutable. We all start with the basics. The Meguiar's all APC and super degreaser. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
so when you're playing with that and you don't really have an excess of a ton of tools and when I first started I wasn't licensed and insured because I wasn't doing a ton of cars. I wasn't I didn't have any really expenses. So I made sure that I was bringing home money like
Right. Right.
from the get go.
At what point did you feel like, okay, I need to get business insurance?
When I started, when I really started getting deeper into like paint corrections, when I started using tools, when I started using a steamer, when I started using things that I don't have control of anymore. Obviously, if you're hand polishing, there's very little you can damage. But you pick up a rotary, yeah, your risk is, your liability is going through the roof now. Now you pick up a steamer. Oh, there you go again. And I'm sure I've made the mistakes, even with a drill brush, like you burn through a little bit of carpet, like things happen. So at that point, once I started picking up power tools, that's when I said, okay, I need to get liability insurance. I need to get licensed and insured. I need to make sure that I'm ready to go. And also another reason is one of the biggest reasons I said I need to get insurance. The day I got insurance was the day that I was in my father's driveway, and me and my brother were not Sal, my other brother, Joseph, my youngest brother. We were using Solution Finish, and we were darkening up the bumper, and we dropped the full bottle of Solution Finish on the driveway, and that stuff stains.
Oh yeah.
It was Solution Finish. And all I thought was if this was another client, like this is expensive, you're gonna have to pay for the asphalt cleaners to come out and take care of this. So I said, you know what? Time to get insurance. So
Right.
you know,
Okay. So on that note, you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to. Have you ever had to file a claim? And if so, is there one you can like share the experience of?
I have not.
Okay.
I've been fortunate enough not to. Yeah, definitely. It's yeah, that's one of those things where a lot of detailers, and I'm making a video on this specific topic is when to say no. Really know your threshold. Really know your boundaries, where your skill set ends and where your expertise ends and where you start to get into that danger zone. Because we all sometimes we'll walk that fine line, and we know when we're walking that fine line, when we're getting into
Totally.
that wet sanding kind of, or
Yep.
I don't know if I should be doing this. I'm going a little heavy with the steam in this area, or, okay, I'm working this fabric a little too much, so, or you're polishing a section a little bit, you start to smell you start to smell the paint burning. You're like, okay, well, let me back off a little bit. But that takes experience. So, and unfortunately, I have pushed to that threshold, and I've had to have those tough conversations with clients, and let them know, hey, I've never damaged anything, but to let them know, okay, this is as far as we're going to go, because we're not in the business of causing damage. We're in the business of protecting your vehicle and cosmetically enhancing the vehicle. So that's a real game changer as far as you understanding what you're capable of doing, and not making those mistakes or putting yourself into a position where you're compromising this your safety and the safety of the vehicle or the property that you're working with, or even like at the beginning when we're using clients electricity, I would still bring my generator with me because my steamer was pulling so much wattage. I've tripped breakers by plugging into their garage. And so that's something that you kind of want to you want to keep that in mind too. There's all
Right,
there's all sorts of things that you can get yourself into trouble with. So
right,
insurance is the safe way to go. Yeah.
right. So if you had to assign like an arbitrary number, not maybe not arbitrary, but this is it obviously varies state to state depending on standards of living and things like that. But is there a, let's just say, yearly revenue number that's not super conservative? Let's say the person is like really putting in a lot of effort to build a lot of momentum in the beginning stages of their business. That first year, is there a reasonable number for the whole year that they could expect to maybe make within, maybe a range?
I think goal setting is huge for any for anybody starting any kind of journey. You want to set a goal so you have something to strive for. If you exceed that goal, great. If you come close to that goal, um, you know, whatever the case may be, wherever you end, it's always good to just kind of have an idea of where your progress stands, and how you're actually inclining or decreasing, whether it's whether it's along the lines of a monthly scaling plan. What I started was I started doing weekly, because for me to think of a yearly number was a bit overwhelming, because I just didn't even know where to begin. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know if I'm going to make 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. So I want to say my first year doing this professionally, I think I made about 20 to 25,000. That was my first year filing taxes. That was my first year, really and I think I worked a part-time job maybe the first, 3 months of, the first quarter of the year. But I would say really focus on the weeklies and focus on the monthly. If you can do the monthly and you already know what your what you need to survive through the month to take care of all of your finances. If say your total finances for your mortgage or your rent and your car and health insurance or whatever it is that you need to pay for is $3,000. If you're able to bring in $5,000, then okay, I'm profiting this amount after expenses. Just deduct your expenses. And if you're trending in it's going upward, then you're obviously doing something right, and you kind of have a good control, a good starting point. You're like, okay, well, this is steady. And I waited for a long time because I was on the nervous side. I didn't want to just jump in and say, oh, okay, I'm going to quit my job. Like I held on to those second jobs for a lot longer probably than I had to, until it got to the point where it's like, okay, these jobs are just holding me back now. Now I'm over here working these minimum wage jobs, just kind of as a backup. But
Uh-huh.
these backups are costing me hundreds of dollars.
Right, right,
I could be out here doing these details. So
right.
so yeah, it's
Okay. It,
yeah,
it
I
sounds
think
like, if I'm pulling out like two things that you were saying, it sounds like number one, rather than focusing on the year, which probably a lot of people do because it's, I don't know, maybe it's a big number, maybe it's like, oh man, $50,000 a year, whatever. If you're starting from zero, it sounds like a lot, but it sounds like you're saying it's a lot easier to control the day to day and the week to week if you just set the perspective that far. And when you get out too far, especially in the beginning, things can get a little too murky, a little too unattainable, a little too difficult to really take action on. Is that right?
Yeah, and you don't want discouragement to kick in too early, because
Sure.
you're on a journey that, sometimes you don't have a lot of support. Sometimes, people don't agree with what you're doing or they don't see your vision. So when you're pushing yourself and you're motivating yourself and you're really trying to do something and you don't hit those goals right away, it could, it does take its toll over time. I'm sure in your journey and my journey, there's times where it's just kind of like, do I have this? Is it in me? And you question yourself, and that's when you have to really dig deep and say, okay. And there's been times, Luke, where I was like, I came home to my fiance and I'm like, I don't think I have it in me to do this. I don't think I'm good enough. And she's just like, what are you talking about? You're insane. Like, I just don't, and we're talking 2, 3 years into it, and all of a sudden it's just like, boom, you know, but it's,
Totally.
yeah, if you really look at it from a smaller scale and set the goals, like now what I do, what the I would say one of the best tools I've used is looking at my calendar on a weekly basis, and with each appointment I look at each car and each appointment as a number, as a dollar value. So I have, say we have 10 booked for 1 week. So I'm like, okay, that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, $1,200, whatever, X amount of dollars this week, X amount of dollars that week, X amount of dollars this week. You know what I mean? So I'm breaking
Totally.
by day, so after, out of a month, even if you only have on your calendar, and I bought one of those big calendars when I first started. So I'm over there writing stuff in, and, it only had a few dates filled out, and I'm like, oh, those 5 dates were like, I was excited when those dates came up. I'm like, yes, yes, I got a detail today. I'm going to make $300 today cash, whatever. So on those days, okay, that's a $300 day. And then even if you only have like 5 of them, it's like, okay, that's $1,500 for the month. You know what I mean? That's a, for 5 days of work, that's pretty decent. You know what I mean? So
Totally.
get down like that, it gives you a better perspective on what you're doing. So it's not like, oh, I didn't hit my goal of 10,000 this month or 5,000 this month. But when you think about how much you're working and the dollar amount that you're bringing in, you start to see movement. And then as the days go on, you start to see that calendar fill up more and more. And then you start to see more money coming in. And then you
Sure.
start to gain a little bit more momentum, and then you feel
Sure.
about yourself. And that changes everything.
Right, right. That's actually a really practical tip in terms of breaking things down per dollar amount rather than per job or other types of measuring metrics. A dollar amount makes a lot of sense, especially in the beginning. And it might even be encouraging to do it that way just because you start seeing dollar signs actually being scheduled instead of just details. So with that, let me ask you the second question that I want to get your opinion on. For people who are starting and they're beginning, or maybe they started and they feel like they've just been in the beginning stage for a long time because there's not a lot of consistency. Two things I want you to answer. I think a lot of times people ask guys like yourself who are experts in any given industry, let's take the detailing industry, and they ask questions that are really practical and they get an answer that's more philosophical. So it's like, how do I make more money? And the financial advisor says, well, you just got to commit to saving a little bit more every single month. And you're like, yeah, I get that. But like, is there a practical note that like, is there
How
a,
do I
like
do
a
it?
software? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So two things. Number one, for guys in the beginning stages who feel like they've been in the beginning stage maybe for a while, can you answer a practical way that you've experienced yourself to build momentum in the beginning stages? And then can you also give a more pulled back philosophical view? And so, for example, what I mean is, hey, Luke, in the beginning stages, we targeted this Facebook group and this Facebook group and this Facebook group, and it was super practical and it brought in a lot of immediate stuff. In a more pulled back sense, we started talking to customers in this way, this way, this way, and we started to see that actually build more word of mouth. That's kind of the way I'm asking you to answer that question. Does that make sense or is that confusing?
Yeah. No, no, totally
Okay.
makes sense. So I would say from the beginning, if you're really looking to generate more work and you're really looking to generate more business, really going and first of all, know what you're looking to market. Like you really have to identify your core customer. What is it that you want? I knew from the very beginning. I had a very clear understanding of who I wanted my clientele to be. I knew what price point I wanted to be, and I knew what type of work I did not want to do. And I think that's very important too.
Could you give an example real fast of a type of work that somebody like yourself in the beginning would not want to do, to give people some
Yes.
ideas?
Yeah. So I didn't. So I was doing like I was doing rinseless for the most part. So fleet work was out of the question for me. No
Got it.
fleet. Did not want to do fleet work. I wanted to do vehicles that for clients that were specifically, enthusiasts or above as far as education wise in car care. People who really cared about their vehicles, people that I can really talk to and communicate. And when I'm explaining my expertise or explaining the processes that I'm taking in order to clean their vehicles, where they're really taking it in and appreciating it. And when I hit that core, when I found those clients, a lot of those guys are usually in chat groups. They're usually in some kind of car clubs. They're usually a lot of those types of clients associate with one another. So I found myself jumping into like kind of like the middle of like, just kind of like dropping right in the middle of bam. All of a
Yep.
sudden now, like Porsche Club of America, bam, Joel's in the middle. Okay,
Yep.
now all these Porsches, all these like in the Central Valley, if you have a black, Central Valley or Bay Area, if you have a black Porsche, Joel's probably the guy you're going to call to do the paint correction on it.
Okay.
Porsche paint is like some of the worst paint to correct if you've
Yeah.
ever with Porsches. So,
Yeah.
so it's to get that clientele, you really have to understand what you're trying to do. You can't just go in there, blindly saying, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna just go out here and advertise this and that." Like you really have to be strategic in the way that you go about it. Who are you talking to? Where are you going? Where are you? Who are you associating with? Everything from the way that you dress, the way that you speak, the way that you're presented, your business cards, all of these things are all very, very, very small strategies that get you to where you want to be.
Let me ask you this. I'll play the part of a beginner. Okay, Joel, I hear what you're saying. I don't know who I want to target exactly. I mean, I think I might have an idea. Like, I think the idea of having really wealthy clientele sounds good, but I know there's a lot of like minivan mom cars in my, neighborhoods around me. How do I go about making the decision of like who I want to target?
Okay. So here's the thing. Where is your interest and where does your heart lie? Are you like some guys are just really deeply into cars?
Yeah.
I grew up with custom cars, so I don't really get impressed with a lot of cars.
Yeah.
Like some people just strive to do supercars. Me,
Right.
if it's a minivan, and I have this conversation with Sal daily, whether it's a minivan or we did a 280ZX 1980 this morning, single stage paint correction, beautiful classic vehicle. And then we did some disaster details this week, and then we graphene coated probably a $200,000 Porsche all in the same week. And it's kind of, to me, I'll do it all, but a lot of retailers don't have that range, and they don't have the, obviously it's, we can kind of pick and choose at this point, but
right.
Are you in the business to make money? Or are you in it to serve your enjoyment and your, kind of that ego of do supercars?
So this is actually a good point because I get the privilege of talking with detailers across the nation, and in detailing, there are so many different, let's just call them types of business models in terms of the type of customer they work with, the types of details they do. And I've really seen that in any of these models, people can be really profitable. And many detailers that I know and that we have trained are really not car people. they're just business people,
Yeah.
and they're really skilled entrepreneurs. And so they don't care if they detail 10 cars a day, but they're doing it
Yeah.
hyper profitably, and they're not worried about swirl marks and the bug etchings up front and wet sanding this hairline scratch that's got some clear coat to give. They're not doing that, and their customers don't care.
Right.
And they're running a very profitable business. And of course, I know the
Yeah.
other end of the spectrum. And so it's kind of, I think it might be relieving for some of the beginners to hear you say, you both of you as people who are running a really profitable detailing business, oh, when I scroll through social media, Joel, I feel like I have to become this detailer who, like, you know, puts, like, marries the car that I'm working on. And so
Yeah.
maybe it's good to, like, take the weight off and say, hey, that actually doesn't have to be you, and you can still run this in a really profitable way, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and there's there's a lot of guys out there who who really want just a certain there's a certain niche, you know what I mean? And like for instance for ceramic coatings, I don't necessarily I don't try to push for ceramic coatings. For me, it's
It's not work.
between the work, the time, and the wear and tear on my body. I would rather do two or three regular details for the same amount of money and call it a day. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? When I
totally.
do ceramic coating, I'm like beat up, I'm tired, my body's hurting, from
Sure.
polisher for so there's different ways to be profitable. It's not this you have to do, and I think people get really caught up in they correlate these high end vehicles with a high dollar detail. That's not the case.
Wait a second, Joel. You're
Case.
telling me that I can detail a $300,000 car and only get paid $150 to do that detail?
Very much
Yeah,
so.
there's guys.
Less than that.
There's guys. There's guys out there that are detailing Ferraris, and that are like $65 details. I'm like, that's great.
No, blasphemy, Joel, okay?
Yeah.
You're going to be stoned for saying this.
So for me, I'll stick with my.
We'll do that Tahoe. Bring
Yeah,
on that Tahoe.
bring it on that Tahoe, bring on that soccer mom.
Hey,
Bring it
we're
on.
going to make a t-shirt that just says, "We'll do that Tahoe."
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll take it. We'll take them all.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's that's one of those things where when you're starting out, that could be a discouraging point for you, and people assume, oh, if they see a nice car on your Instagram, that you're capable of doing better work, or you're for me it was more of the approach I took was before and after photos. I said, let me find the grimiest befores and let me just really just show what I'm capable of doing. And
Sure.
that's like, people love going to my Instagram just to see my before and afters. They're just like, geez, like, Joel, that is insane. Like, how did you do that? And it's
Right.
kind of like, before we were like more, paint specialists. Now it's like people are really just kind of attracted to this, just like turnaround, like this
Right.
detail. Like, geez, you guys are, because now I have Sal with me, so we're doing disaster details in like 2-3 hours. Like, we're knocking them out, and
Right.
those are high dollar details. That's
Right.
not stuff to do. So it's
Right.
two of those, I'll take those all day long. So it's
Totally.
yeah. So that's, I think, when you're starting out, I think just take what you can, and the more you diversify your skill set, the more you're able to kind of accommodate everybody. I don't think you need to get into one sector of detailing. You get into one sector of detailing, what happens is, okay, when it's not car show season, what are you going to do?
Sure.
Custom cars, or when COVID came, all my guys that were on the car show circuits, there's no car shows.
Right.
I mean, so
Right.
when it came back, they all came back to me, but I already had an array in this huge, portfolio was so diversified with different types of work. I consistently busy, so it's important to stay well-rounded. Don't really get yourself pigeonholed into one area, because there's, that like say ceramic coating. Yes, it was, what 2 years ago, so everybody wanted a ceramic coating. Everybody's talking about ceramic coating. Now,
Mhm.
you know, ceramics are just thrown around like anything. It's basically there's ceramic in shampoos now. There's ceramic in everything.
Right.
So it's like to say the word ceramic is almost like wax. So it's
Sure. Sure.
but,
Okay.
yeah, just yeah.
Let me ask you this like final question, and I think it might also kind of be that pulled back philosophical answer mixed in with this. For guys who are starting, a lot of the time they fear competition. So it's like, hey, I live in a really competitive area. How am I going to grow my business? You guys live in a unusually competitive area as well. I mean, I would assume. And how do you separate yourself? Does it affect you? Is it something you think about? It keeps you up at night? Talk about that just a little bit.
It doesn't, and it definitely doesn't keep me up at night. I feel like we're doing things so from the get go, and Sal can test. He can actually, just he was actually part of the conversation when I first started detailing. When I started, I said, okay, here's what I want to do. I want to have something I want to service a very, very customer service oriented business. So that was always number one. So customer service was always our primary focus. Um, so that already distinguished. We're already in a class of our own with that because as we all know, the detailing business, there's a lacking in the customer service arena when it comes to
Very practical advice right there. Like that's as practical as it gets.
that's as practical as it gets. And so customer service, number
And
one.
actually, let me put a pin in that. Can you give an example of just something generally that helps you have really great customer service? Is there something you do consistently? Is there a way of talking? Something concrete?
I can tell you, you could start by answering your phone.
Oof. Wow.
You know how many detailers don't answer their phones? I tried to get my fiance's car detailed, and I reached out to about 8 detailers last week, and it was a nightmare trying to get any response from any of them. I'm like, easy. The car's
Yeah.
ceramic. I'm like, I just need like a simple. I didn't have time to do it. So it's just answer your phone. And do you know how many times I get calls where I got the job simply because I answered my phone, and the client says, you're the only, I called 5 people and you're the only one that picked up the phone. Like,
Totally. I kind of think about it in terms of like a really big tech company's customer service line. Like you always dread calling the customer service line because you're like, I'm about to talk to somebody who does not speak my language. They're not going to understand me. I'm going to be transferred to like 4 different people. And I always think to myself, if there was like a third party company who came in and said, hey, we're going to be your customer service and we're going to like make it really easy, streamlined. I'm like, I would pay more to company
Definitely.
A
oh
to just like
yes,
be
Definitely. We talk
subscribed
about
to
that
company
all
A.
the time.
Yeah, in order to have better customer service, if that's what it meant, just because that's how frustrating it is. So it's important to put a pin in this because what often happens in the detailing world is while yes, there's competition in terms of detailers that exist, there's actually huge white space for detailers like yourself who are good with people because all these other detailers are so bad with people. It
yeah,
creates almost like this breath of fresh air moment when you
yeah.
step in as a normal person who's dependable. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a big point. You find the white space in your business, and wherever there's room for growth in an industry, that's what you want to target that in. Really, obviously, here the professionalism was lacking, the customer service was lacking, and all of these things. I've
yeah,
taught courses on these. You know,
yeah,
development. Like I've taught court, like these are things that I've done and I've been instilled from some of the largest companies, in the world. So it's like I already have this skill set. So that was already number one. And with Sal, when I first approached him, he said, oh, you need to get an app. You need to do this. I said, no, 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 none of that's going to happen. None of that. I want this to be a true customer service experience. I want them to call me. I want them to hear my voice. I want it to be personal service. I want it to be specialized service. So already you're creating this bespoke atmosphere and environment. So you're already elevating your business and you're already you're catering, a specialty, goods to somebody opposed to just a normal service that's just kind of drive through, or you're just texting, oh, let me set this appointment, and it's everything is specific based on your unique vehicle size, condition, all of these things where it's all custom. So that
Sure.
was the approach for us. So in that sense, I never thought we had competition. There was times where I would see other detailers in the area kind of do things, kind of similar. Where I'm like, okay, well, this guy's getting a little too close to my, to some of the neighborhoods, or some of my clientele. Or I've even had some of my clientele leave and go to other detailers. But I know exactly why they've gone, and it wasn't a quality thing. It was, it's almost always for, for price point,
Right.
and I'm totally fine with that, because not every client is willing to pay, and they don't always want the quality that we're delivering.
Sure.
And I get that,
Sure.
and I have no problem passing those in. And I, even when clients call me and ask me questions, I have no problem letting them know from the get-go. Like, I got a call today from a guy who has a private collection in the Bay Area. He's like, we have 30 vehicles that we store, and they're driven, every few months. We just want to make sure that they're clean. They're all exotics and they're all classics. And I let him know, I said, hey, just so you know, every vehicle we touch, no matter how much it's been driven, or how little it's been driven, the pricing is going to start at this price point. So that's not going to change with us. So if that's not within your budget, then we may not be the right guys for you. So, with that, he said, oh no, you've been highly recommended. So let's, so we're going to meet with him next week. So things like that, I think if you stick to your guns over time and you keep the integrity of your business and you build that reputation, things tend to fall on your terms over time. It does take a little bit longer, but as your reputation grows, the proven quality shows up in the end, and then you end up getting things in your terms. It just takes a little bit longer, just like anything else.
Sure. And it's kind of funny because some of the things you're saying are making me think a lot of times we measure competition based on we almost overweigh things. So you'll see a mobile detailer drive by and you're like, oh my gosh, there's all this competition. And it's like, actually, we saw one guy. That's what happened, right? We didn't see a bunch of guys. We saw, yeah.
It's
And
great.
yeah, because it kind of means there's a market for this. And the other thing that I've always thought about is, because I know detailers, just because there are listings for detailers that exist or detailing businesses that exist does not mean that they're taking a big piece of the detailing pie that exists in your area. It's like if we had 10 people at a table, half of those people might not even like pie, or they might have already been full. And so they're not eating pie. And so there's 10 people there, but we're only dividing it 5 ways. And so I got to think about that in an area like yours. It's like there's a lot of detailers, but if each detailer is only taking 0.001% of the total pie, and Joel is doing such a good job that he owns 25% of the pie, it's like, who cares? Let him come in. It's no big deal, So it's kind of we tend to get a little
and
too
as
scared.
far as competition too, it's especially if you're running solo. It's like, how much business can you really take on?
Exactly.
I mean, come on, like, realistic.
Totally.
When we're solo detailers, like, we're lucky if we do 3 cars a day. Like, 3 cars is you're overworked if you're doing 3 cars a day, 3 days a week. That's a lot of work for one person.
3 days,
Right.
3 cars. That's one household. There's a lot of cars out there.
Totally.
Not see a car on the road.
That's exactly right. That's like guys who they talk themselves out of getting into something because they make up problems that haven't yet happened. So it's like, well, this industry is only $1 billion. And it's like, okay, how about go get 0.01% of $1 billion and then start complaining? But maybe do something before you say, too much competition. It's like, really?
Yeah. The competition thing, I think that's I think a lot of that is self-serving ego as well. Like, it's like, okay, I want this. This is my territory, or I've earned this. Because we're business owners. So there's a lot of pride in what we do. There's a lot of we take a lot of ownership in what we do, and some of the neighborhoods or some of the maybe if it's our personal neighbor, like my parents the other day, they're like, hey, there's another detailer over at the neighbor's house. I'm like,
Yeah.
so call you.
Yes.
I don't know.
This is America.
Probably not in their price range. Maybe
Right.
they did. Maybe they did. And I told so it's there's I don't see competition. There's so many cars out. There's more cars out there than all the detailers in my area could service if we wanted to. You know what I mean?
Totally.
It's insane. So
Totally.
I think anybody should be, and I think that's that's one of the easiest ways to kill your own business is to be concerned with other people's business.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, because your focus is no longer on your business. Your focus is on something else. Like if you want, like everybody knows, laser focus is the fastest way to get from point A to point B, especially when you're goal setting. So if
Right.
you're somewhere else completely, you're being counterproductive for yourself.
Totally. Totally. Okay. Sal, Joel, let me not take any more of your time. Guys, if you want to check out their YouTube channel, it will be linked up in the description box below. Without wasting time doing a crazy outro, thank you guys so much for your time. And don't get off. I'm just going to click stop on the recording. But thank you guys so much for your time, and we'll talk later. Alrighty?
Thank you.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Make sure to hit the like button if you like interviews like this, because frankly, they're really easy to do. And I kind of wish I would have had interviews like this to look at 10 years ago when I was starting my detailing business. So if you like the interview style content, hit the like button so that I know. Before you guys click off this video, make sure to go below in the YouTube description box and grab my top 12 detailing tools and products of this year, updated and revised for you guys right now. Once again, it's that PDF and a free video series that comes with that. And if you want to see more content like this on a weekly basis, make sure to subscribe to the Wilson Auto Detailing channel. And guys, from Luke here at Wilson Auto Detailing, as always, keep working hard, and I will see you in the next video.